Hi, and welcome back to another Street Fight Politics. We're happy to have you. Why Street Fight Politics? Because Republicans keep electing dumbasses. My name is Jimmy Zuma, and my two co-hosts, as always, are Ed Westerfield, who had a little video moment this week, and Harry Ramsbottom, a political writer on Medium. Hi, guys.
Hey, guys.
Hello, all.
How's it going?
Well, it's been a fun couple of days, huh?
Yeah, I feel like we're maybe in a democracy again. It seems like democracy has prevailed.
I've been down in Mexico the last few days. Have I missed anything?
Well,
you've been waiting to use that joke, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, I wrote that one out a long time ago.
Well, let's talk about that. What's happening? Trump's in the last throes of the Trump administration is in its last throes, and Donald Trump is in his last rounds of federally paid golf. I don't think they have golf at any of the federal prisons that I know of. So this may be it. What's he up to these days?
you know, I tell you, it's a wonderful thing when you write something years ago and it comes back and it's actually happening as you wrote it so far. So a couple of years ago, I wrote a piece on Facebook saying, hey, realistically, Trump's best option is to cut and run because he's not going to get reelected. At some point, the bricks are going to start falling down on him, and he's going to realize that he's going to be prosecuted. And sure enough, here we are 2 years later. That was literally written in December of 2018. And here we are now. He's lost the election. He's starting to realize it. He's not winning any lawsuits. There have been, 30 plus now that have been dismissed. He's only had 2 that won anything, and that were minor points that didn't change anything. And at some point, somebody's going to whisper in his ear and say, hey, boss, you can cut your legal problems in half if you just leave the country and get the hell out of here and fight it again another day. So, I wrote another piece recently that said, take a look and see what the realities are here. I'm doubling down on my bet 2 years ago and saying he's going to leave out of here. Because does he want to face an inauguration? No. Can you see him sitting through that? Riding down Pennsylvania Avenue in the Beast? No,
and seeing a big crowd at the inauguration. It looks like there's going to be an actual crowd inauguration, Joe Biden has said.
I think so. And so anyway, you see him sitting through that? No, I don't think so. See him working hard enough on the transition? Because, be realistic, transitions are hard work, even for the exiting president. His best move right now is to abdicate the throne, turn it over to Pence in return for a pardon. Pence gets to be president for a day. Trump gets out of here. He escapes in the middle of the night. Secret Service won't have any idea what to do about it because there's no standing order for what to do if a president just ups and leaves, right?
Right.
Before anybody made a suggestion about it, he'd be gone. If he gets on a national jet from another country, like, I don't know, a Brazilian military transport, our Air Force is going to be stymied about what to do about that. You don't want to cause an international incident in midair. We've done that once before. It didn't end well for the Americans back in the 80s. So, this is entirely possible. And, by the way, if he files for another candidacy, another campaign committee for 2024, which he can do wherever he is in the world, he gets free donations, he gets all of that stuff going in, and we know by history he's just going to move that into his bank accounts. He's done that before, or into his businesses and wash it through. So he gets an income stream from all those idiots who are going to donate their $5 and $10 and $15 to him because they love him. And he gets to fight another day, maybe. There's nothing that says he can't run for president. There's nothing that says he couldn't be elected as president. What a fucking mess that would be.
I'm not sure that's true. Some recent polling from Morning Consult found, and of course, at the Hill, this was portrayed as most Republicans say they will vote for Trump in 2024. But what in fact was in the polling was that 54% of Republicans said they would vote for Trump in 2024, which is a real step down from his 90% popularity just a month ago.
I'm not saying that he could not. I'm talking legally. There's nothing legally preventing him from doing all those things. You could run for president from a prison cell.
I know what you're saying. I'm just, It doesn't seem, if he's already lost 35 to 40% of his support, and he's not even gone yet, I have a feeling in 2 or 3 years, nobody's going to care.
Jimmy. I agree, Jimmy. I mean, his support is only going to go down from here the further and further he gets out. And Nostradamus, congratulations. That was just excellent work. I think that what you do is you run this through the lens of what's in it for Trump on the way out. And we look at the G20 meeting. There wasn't anything in it for him. So, he basically didn't show and went to play golf. And so if, you take that as the operating principle, and up until, I have to agree with Mike that what's in it for him is he needs to avoid some very serious legal consequences. And the only way to do that, realistically, is not to be in the country where you can be indicted and, if need be, extradited. And so that leaves you Russia, Saudi Arabia, I guess Brazil is a country that also doesn't have a working extradition treaty with us. And the more you think that through, the more likely I think that becomes.
So, yeah, well, Trump did throw a bone to Russia this week. He decided to leave, or confirmed that he was leaving, the Open Skies Treaty, and said that their plans are to destroy the aircraft that are used to monitor the Open Skies Treaty, so that it will be very difficult for Biden to get back in. They're making a number of moves like this. Mnuchin just tried to transfer all the COVID relief money into the general fund because he believes that Janet Yellen can't get it out of the general fund to use it for its intended purposes. But it seems like to me she's got a better case that that's not what the money was appropriated for than he's got a case that he can just move it over there willy-nilly and then it's locked in. So we will see what happens with that. But they're making a lot of moves to try and make Joe Biden's life more difficult. And I think that Joe Biden is just a happy warrior. Now, one thing that we know, of course, did happen is that that Mooney at the GSA finally certified the election, that Joe Biden was the apparent winner of the election, sent him a 2-page letter whining about the death threats she was getting and all this other, it's their usual crying at the Senate hearing shtick that they do. But that has started, and it's what that does is it unlocks Joe Biden's access to career employees. And
go ahead.
And if he has access to career employees, he has access to all the information he needs. He doesn't need Trump to cooperate or Mnuchin to cooperate or any of these other high-level doofuses.
No, what we're watching here is, this is like the drunk that gets in the fight at the bar and then decides he's going to leave and he throws all the tables and chairs on his way out to make a mess. Mm-hmm. And, 15 minutes later, everybody's drinking again and they've forgotten about the guy and they're laughing at him. And that's exactly what I think is happening here. He's trying to do his best at a scorched earth policy. He's going to tip over all the tables and chairs and make a big mess and try to capture headlines because he's lost them right now. And Biden is going to come in like a grown-up with a team of grown-ups, professional politicians and policymakers who are going to come in and say, okay, we're back to normal now. We had 4 years of ridiculousness. Let's get back to work, folks, and let's be grown-ups about it. And that's what we're going to see.
Well, if you go back and look at Minnesota's history after they elected Jesse Ventura, the Minnesota voters back in the day sort of did the same thing where you had the voters threw a hissy fit and said, well, we're tired of the Democrats and the Republicans, so we're going to stir things up and put in Jesse Ventura. And 4 years later, they came to their senses and booted him out. And, he's gone back to whatever it is he does. And it's not politics.
Right. Well, it's not acting either. So.
Yeah. And
it never was either of those.
I loved him in The Predator. Come on. It's like.
Fair point.
Spits on the guy's shoes. Nasty habit you got there, son.
The high point of his career. The lifelong high point
that
of his
movie
career.
had 2 future governors in it. That you got to admit,
and 2 stars.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the actors.
No, come on. I like the movie, but I was 20.
Yeah.
No, it was a good movie. So.
No, it is fascinating to watch though, but what I'm really enjoying here from both a professional and a very personal perspective is that Biden is stealing the headlines. Trump has abdicated not just his responsibilities, but his own ego. He just goes golfing, he disappears. He's had what I think three news conferences. One today was to pardon Turkey. The other one was to brag about the stock market that he said was going to crash when Biden got elected,
right.
And has hit a record. By the way, that's just a sugar high. Nobody go out and buy stocks today. That's a bad idea.
Well, it rose opposite of what he claimed would happen, and then he took credit for it rising. That's the Donald Trump we all know.
But Biden, in the meantime, has announced his cabinet. I think he's played it incredibly intelligently. Whatever you want to say about the guy, whether you like him, whether you agree with him, all those kinds of things, he's doing a damn good job at transition. And he's stealing the headlines, the thunder away from Trump, and that's got to be getting under his skin. You just know Trump's got to do something, which feeds back into my theory. But enough about that.
Well, if you're a news junkie like us, you've noticed the transition.
Oh, huge.
Declining Trump coverage, increasing Biden coverage. That's as it should be. And usually that automatically happens after the election. But with, Donald Trump trying to say all this stuff that's just simply not true, he's still getting some airtime. The other thing that Biden is doing is he's filling the cabinet and the White House with professionals. And I want to talk about one example. Alejandro Mayorkas, he's the slated to be the new Secretary of Homeland Security. Now, here's what's interesting about that. He's a Latino. He's the first Latino to head up that agency. He's an immigrant. He's the first immigrant to head up that agency. And the other thing, the professional part of him, is he is probably one of the key people who engineered DACA, which, by the way, survived Trump, much to my glee. And so he will be looking at how to make DACA stronger and certainly, stop cheating at the border. He's going to have a humane border policy where people can actually get asylum like his family got. And I would expect to see big changes. Now, they're going to be resisted at the Border Patrol because that's another corrupt government agency. But I think he will make some big moves, and there'll be some big changes at the Department of Homeland Security, which has a lot of ability to mess with your life.
Yeah, I think what we're watching here, outside of DHS and that appointment, overall, you're seeing him appoint professionals. You haven't heard of most of these people because they are the silent professionals. They are the bureaucrats that grew up in those agencies. They're not politicians. They're not elective office holders. They're not seeking the limelight. They're the ones who make things work and have made things work over 20 and 30-year careers.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing that you can criticize about them is they don't have enough reality TV experience.
How are they ever going to function?
Yeah, you can't.
So, but again, this is a return to a grown-up government that functions. I don't care whether it's Democrat or Republican. If Biden was a Republican and doing these things, I'd be standing up and cheering as well. This is what we need in America and what America has traditionally been. And we're returning back to that in a good way.
Right. And for example, at the Department of Homeland Security, Trump has issued 400 executive orders that made life more difficult for migrants and border crossers and people of color. And Mayorkas is the guy to get rid of that.
Yeah.
He knows what's going on. He knows what's supposed to be there, what's not supposed to be there. He can root it out. He already has the trust of the career employees in the agency. And that's the other thing that's happening with the appointments. Janet Yellen at the Fed knows how the Fed is supposed to work. All of these people know how government is supposed to work and will be excellent in their ability to root out these executive orders that Trump has buried and these rule changes that Trump has buried and eliminate them.
Because they know how it works. They've seen it before. They grew up in that system, and you're not going to pull the wool over their eyes. You get somebody like Avril. I cannot remember her last name. Who's going to be the
Levine?
Yes, Avril Levine.
She's a singer.
No. I'm sorry. The appointee who's going to be the chief of intelligence.
Avril Lavigne got appointed to the CIA.
No, stop it.
Sorry, I'm
Stop
done.
it.
I'm done.
No, but this is someone who grew up in the system, who knows how it works. And again, you've never heard of her because you don't normally hear about intelligence professionals. And they're not political appointees. They are professional people who have been promoted out of that professional system into a political position, but they're going to do it right because that's all they've done their entire career. And, you know, I do not disagree with any one of those appointments. We can say, hey, what's happened to this guy, or where's Pete Buttigieg? And the appointments ain't over yet. There's a lot more appointments to be made, and very important appointments to be made. So everybody just hold their breath, and let's see what happens. And let's applaud what we've got, because I think he's done a damn good job so far.
Well, I think some progressives are itching to pick a fight. This is kind of the
Yes.
the way Bernie Sanders has run his entire career has, say the right things, not do the right things, and then backshoot your allies. And I think some progressives are now itching to do that. But there will be very little chance to do that. I think this government will be representative of women, people of color. You may not like, if you're a criticizer, you may not like the politics of some of these people, but for the most part, nobody knows their politics. We know they're Democrats, we know they're loyal Democrats, and we know they have experience in government. So there's very little to criticize in the absence of action. And I think you're right. I think that's part of Biden's strategy, is to bridge divides and have a multicultural, multiracial government. I've never seen so many appointments. That's a shame I've never seen it, but the appointments either rival or exceed the percentages of the various groups in the population. So he's to be lauded for that. That will be a change in how government works. And I have always said in hiring that if you always hire the best person, you won't have a diversity problem. And I think Joe Biden's fixing to prove that.
Yeah, I think we're absolutely seeing that. And I don't remember who, one of my friends somebody said to me, he's going to do exactly what the Prime Minister of Canada did, and really have that diverse cabinet. And he has done so far. It's fantastic. And you're right, there's smart people.
One of our viewers just posted a comment of, will Biden appoint any Republicans? And it's over my dead body, he'll do that. I mean, it's like, in fact, I donated enough money to these campaigns that, I'm not an important person, but I can get the temperature of what's going on. And we've had enough of people that, or try to say, well, we're toward the center. And the thing is, the whole ideology of the Republican Party is not anything that you would recognize from Ike Eisenhower's era. It's now something that is so far to the right that if you call yourself a Republican, you own all that. So no, there's not going to be a Republican appointed. It's like we've got enough Democrats that have more than enough capability to fulfill all these. And, if anything, that would be a huge political mistake to do that.
I think it's always been traditional for Democratic administrations to appoint one or two token Republicans.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure he won't do that. I'm not so sure it matters as long as they're not in any key posts. And nobody has been announced who's a Republican for any of the key posts. And we're starting to hear more and more. So if he wants to throw in a couple of Republicans in minor jobs, more power to him.
I can see him putting a Republican in transportation. I can see him doing, or an agency like that. And oh, by the way, not even an hour ago on NBC News here on the West Coast, Lester Holt's interview with Biden, which I suggest we all watch. Seriously, it's worth watching because you're actually getting some real honest responses from Biden about this. But he addressed that and said, he's open to it. He's still looking for the right person and the right particular piece. So I think it's probably going to happen.
I do agree there should be no cabinet level Republicans, and that would be a mistake. I like that he's looking at a Secretary of Defense who is not a Republican. That's one of the things that they traditionally do. They've lost all their gravitas on any of the subjects that they tried to claim in the past.
Sure.
Morality or defense or
any
of the things they claim to be experts in. They've proven that they're not experts in. And not even morally suited for. So it would be a mistake to put a Republican, I think, at the cabinet table. I agree with Ed about that.
Whether it's a mistake or not, I think he's open to it. And his number one priority, as stated tonight and in several other places, is national unity. He really firmly believes that we've got to get past the divisiveness. Now, we three here on Street Fight Politics, we're all about smacking the bastards in the face and letting them know they're wrong. Right. But I get his point. He wants to try at least to hold out some sort of fig leaf to the folks and say, look, I'm trying to work with you.
Mm-hmm. That's how Barack Obama squandered his first 2 years when he could have gotten big things done.
I totally agree.
We could have had a much better ACA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, I think that kind of thing never works. But, it's fine. We know who he is. He's the guy that could get elected. And the guy who could get elected is a guy who pretends, we're all one big happy country. That's not us.
Sakes, you had a significant faction of the far right part of the Republican Party that wanted to kidnap a governor, hold show trials on TV, and execute them. I'm sorry. There's no reaching across the aisle or whatever divide that is you're going to have to reach across, to break bread with these people. Hell no.
Yeah. And
Absolutely
what's the common
not.
ground between us and a racist? What's the middle ground between us and a racist? There's no middle ground.
That's why I left the Republican Party, among other reasons, is because they had become overtly racist. Before, I just didn't pick up on it for years, that, it was just institutional and, subtle. It took, getting to the Trump era with all their patriots that, it just became so obvious that it's like, there was no way I could stay a part of them.
Let me throw out something interesting here. And again, I'm not trying to defend it. I'm just saying this is what the realities are probably. You take a guy like Jeb Bush, who has cut a figure as a reasonable Republican in most cases. Yeah, people are going to throw rocks at me about that. I get it. But here's a guy who's married to a Mexican native who speaks Spanish fluently, who has executive experience running one of the largest states in the country, who was a very credible presidential candidate until Trump came in and shit in the punch bowl. And I can see him getting a cabinet position somewhere.
No cabinet positions for Republicans.
I'm not saying I'm advocating it. I'm just saying I can
down
see
the
it
law,
happening.
just as Ed did.
All right.
Yeah, obviously that's something that Biden might want to do, but it's up to us to convince him that that's not the level to be appointing Republicans to. You can make, a Republican his press secretary or something like that, or, his archivist or some other position.
It's got to be something very minor that's a token position. I'm sorry. You cannot look at having as many qualified people as we've got on the Democratic, liberal, progressive side that you can go out and pick from. I'm sorry. You had the worst of the worst, bootlickers, toadies, and sycophants, around Trump for the last 4 years. I mean, enough of that. The Republicans got to figure out their own mess. And I can tell you that from what I've seen just in dealing with in Arizona, it's like the leader of a new party called the Patriot Party. We're going to surgically remove the good Republicans out and leave everybody there. And it's like, I was one of those. You didn't have to surgically remove me. I left on my own. It's you can have it, and more power to you, because you can take all that, concentrate it, and then you can go reach out to the people that probably like me and Mike, that just for whatever reason haven't left, and go reach out to them. But sorry, I'm not reaching out to the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers and all these guys that are talking about overthrowing the United States and going to war with Democrats.
And we have to remember that all these gentlemen Republicans who we seem to remember fondly because we don't remember very well, all voted for Trump. They all voted for Donald Trump. And anybody who would vote for Donald Trump and knows the business of politics and knows the business of government but still voted for Trump, fuck them.
I want a bumper sticker. That works. Personally, that works for me. I mean, I'm the guy who on my personal page last night said, is it wrong that I want to shave their heads like the Nazi collaborators after World War II? And that's a joke, guys. No, I don't really think we ought to do that. But that's kind of the level of emotion here is, fuck you guys. You said all this shit. You called us snowflakes. You were just complete dickheads 4 years ago, and now you're whining and crying like you claimed we did. So, nah, I'm not having it with you.
Well, and you got the state senator of Mississippi who wants the state of Mississippi to secede, although he spelled it succeed.
It would be nice to wait a second, and become the country of Mississippi.
Well, I hope they do. And like Curly on the Three Stooges said, if at first you can't succeed, keep on sucking till you do succeed. That's an actual quote. I remember that.
I believe you. It sounds like a Curly quote. These guys, it's unbelievable. They keep electing dumbass after dumbass after dumbass. They replaced Doug Collins with Tommy Tuberville. Now, Tommy Tuberville was instantly famous because he created an unforced error proving that he can't name the three branches of government. He called it the Senate, the House, and the Executive.
Honest to God, this is... Football trumps everything in Alabama, right? Including intelligence.
Yes. Right. Well, they didn't start out high.
No,
they have one of the most decrepit school systems, and it shows.
And by the way, hookworm is making a resurgence in Alabama. Think about that.
That's because they're I actually spent some time living in Alabama, and I've got to defend them a little bit. I mean, one, Huntsville is an area that has a higher per capita ratio of PhDs than any place in the nation. So the problem
you'd have to show me the facts on that.
I believe that, actually. However,
I can show you the facts on that. That's absolutely true.
Yeah, I do believe that.
The problem is that the politics in the state is Jeff Sessions represented the politics perfectly, because you still have this old South white supremacy that just soaks through the politics. And so, if you're a black Alabamian, you're not far removed from the Jim Crow and the slave days. And so they don't give a flying fuck about black Alabamians, which is why you have this belt called the Black Belt, where you have literally, they have a problem with sewage. I mean, literally just oozing through ditches, if you're, in the black areas of Alabama. They have hookworm coming back. They have, horrible health problems that aren't addressed by the political system, because, that's what Alabama has.
Well, and they also have a non-functioning political system. It doesn't serve citizens. It serves a small group of affluent white citizens. Doesn't serve poor white people either. Jeff Sessions in South Carolina, same thing. Their government is not for all the people. And that's the nature of these southern states that are, frankly, takers. The idea that Mississippi could become a country and support itself is belied by the fact that they've never, as a state, supported themselves in the history of the nation. They always get wealth transfers from our states.
It would be the Bangladesh of America.
Right. It would be. That's a really and just
it'd be the Bangladesh of Mississippi at that point.
The Mississippi of America.
Yeah.
But I agree, Jimmy. I mean, it's like when you look at the way the wealth transfers, the red states are all takers. They have not bootstrapped up, and in fact, what they do is they've got their hand out with their politicians. Taking from California, taking from New York. It's like there's a huge transfer of wealth. And states like Mississippi, Alabama, somewhat, the Arkansas, Louisiana's, even Texas takes. And, Texas is supposed to be we're richer and more manly than everybody else. But when you look at they're a net importer when it comes to bucks.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's pivot a little bit. Today, Pennsylvania and Nevada certified their elections, two of the key swing states that we're waiting on.
And yesterday was Michigan.
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead. You're right.
Yesterday, Michigan certified their elections. We're waiting on Arizona, and I can't even remember the other state. Who else are we waiting on?
Wisconsin, I think.
Right. Wisconsin hasn't certified their election yet. And then, of course, there's Georgia. So, man, they really seem to have trouble getting anything done down there. They've had these massive recounts. They want to have, Trump wants them to have another recount, but only in the black communities. They are overdue to certify their election, I believe, from the date they were supposed to.
Well, I might be wrong on this. I think they certified, but Trump has had 2 days to make a claim for a recount. It's a machine recount. They've already done a hand recount. This is really just pro forma. It really is performance politics where he's just playing to his crowd. It's not going to change anything. Regardless, Biden has won.
Right.
Trump has thrown in the towel without saying it. He's not ever going to say it. I don't care at this point. He's already done as much damage as he's probably going to do for right now. But let's talk about Georgia, because the other fun thing about that, as we briefly discussed last week, is that Trump and the Republican Party writ large are at war about what's going to happen with that Senate race down there, and it ain't doing the senators any good in Georgia.
Right. And, there's a lot of talk about on Parler, which, if you haven't heard, is Parler is the new Twitter for conservatives. They're all abandoning Twitter and Facebook to go to Parler because they can say racist shit without getting banned. And that's the bottom line. They say, well, we have freedom of speech. It's the freedom to be a racist and a sexist and promote violence. That's what they have at Parler. But at Parler, there's a strong conversation that seems to be going on where some leaders, if you can call them that, of these fringe ideas that have become so common in the Republican Party are saying they should boycott the election in Georgia to show Republicans who they are not pleased with. And remember, they're not pleased with Republicans in Georgia because they didn't cheat enough to win the election. But now there's talk that Republicans should just boycott the election down there. And boy, that sounds great to me.
Well, to paraphrase Sun Tzu in The Art of War, if your enemy wants to throw themselves off a cliff, let them.
Right.
We should be just passing them on by. Let's not try to argue about it. Let's not try to do anything other than facilitate their passage through. And I think we have a long road between here and January 5th, a lot longer than we want to contemplate. But I think there's every chance that will happen, that the Republicans are eating themselves alive in Georgia, and our chances at winning the Senate are greater and greater. They were never better than 50-50, but they might be getting a little bit better right now.
Yeah, and certainly a couple of other things weave together with that. One is Trump has basically threatened to mess things up down there too, because he's not happy that they didn't cheat enough for him to win. And then I go back to thinking about this Patriot Party that you're talking about, Ed, and imagine a world where the Republican Party splits into all these splinter groups, none of whom can win an election. Wouldn't that be a beautiful world?
It's happening as we speak. And in fact, I've got other people that are right-wingers that are participate in my personal Facebook page. They've already said that, they're going to do whatever they can to muck things up, and they're not going to vote. They're going to, they're protesting by not voting. And it's like, my God, it's like, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to stop them from doing this.
So when I was in Afghanistan, the stories were rife about, the Taliban saying, well, we're just going to boycott the elections. And they did that a couple of times, and of course, they got nothing out of it. And then by the time I was leaving, and this was 2010, the stories were that the Taliban at the last election, or some election during my time frame there, had taken over one of the polling places, cordoned it off, kept people out, and then they stuffed the ballot box because they wanted to win the election. And so, if that's what the Republicans want to do, they already act enough like the Taliban. Let them go ahead and act like the Taliban then.
Yeah. Well, they are. People call them the American Taliban, and certainly that's what we've seen in the last 4 years.
They absolutely certainly are. And this is if you study terrorism as I have, and this is what you call a traditionalist revolt. It has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with a political belief system. It is everything to do with the fact you're changing shit that I don't want you to change, and I'm afraid of what this change is going to bring. And we've talked about this in previous episodes on this show, but it really is this changing demographic of brown people from overseas with funny accents coming in and doing things differently. And instead of embracing the food and the culture and the liveliness and the ingenuity that comes with that, they're saying, no, I don't want that at all. I'm too afraid it's gonna change my life too much. Yeah, they don't look at the upside. They're only looking at, I'm losing my power. I'm losing my grip. They're going to make me worse than I was before. They can't do that. That's not how it works.
Yeah, and remember, when these people, threaten you or maybe scare you, that the operating emotion of conservatism is fear.
Absolutely.
And if you look at what these people do, they only aggress in groups. They never, aggress as an individual because they're cowards. They're all cowards hiding guns under their shirt because they're afraid to go outside. Well, the majority of Americans aren't afraid to go outside without a gun. They're not snowflakes. The snowflakes are the people who, call people snowflakes, the gun hiders. So we don't need to be afraid of these people, even though they're blustery and acting like they're big and tough. There was some thought that they were going to cause violence after the election. Well, that never materialized. Now, we'll see what happens next week when it's all said and done. But these guys are not anybody to be afraid of.
So interestingly...
There's no reason...
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
There's no reason to fear conservative Republicans, Southern Republicans, cracker Republicans, any of these groups, Proud Boys, the whole lot of them. I don't know if you saw the video of the Proud Boys initiation, but it looked like the most... what's the word? Help me out with a word. The most...
I would sum it up with two words: blood wings. Because, and this is a true thing, and this happens in the military, and it's kind of it used to happen in the military. I think they've kind of gone away from that because of bullying rules and things like that. But back in the day, so in 1986, when I went to jump school and earned my jump wings, it was de rigueur that you would, after you've made your fifth and final jump, somebody would come up and pin the wings on your chest and then pound them into your chest. Yeah. And that's what it was. I mean, it's silly shit. It just is absolutely ridiculous.
It was guys, I don't know if you can see this, but it was guys punching like this, which, is a tell. If anybody punches like this, they can't punch. They're all punching their new member, but there's no pain involved. There's no actual punch involved. And then they all fall down together and roll around. I mean, this was the most lightweight.
Fraternity.
Not even fraternity. I mean, fraternities are rougher than these guys. So this is who we're supposed to be afraid of? I don't think so.
Well, what I was going to say earlier was I've lived in a bunch of damn different states. I've got 3 kids 2 years apart. They were all born in a different state, to give you some idea of how much I've moved around in my life. And the only place that I have felt compelled to walk around with a weapon, and only concealed, never open, that's ridiculous unless you're hunting, was Arizona, where all these other assholes were walking around with guns and openly displaying and then threatening people.
Right.
And that was because I was a political candidate and I was a Democrat in a Republican district, and I felt a little threatened, honestly.
Well, I tell you, I moved to Arizona in 1989, and one of the first things I saw was this guy on a motorcycle with a huge, I think they call them hog legs, strapped to his side, and it's just like, oh my God, what did I move to? So.
Well, and there's an old story about that in biker culture, that how can you tell if somebody's on probation? And the answer is because their girlfriend's carrying the hog leg. These big 12, 15-inch long pistols that they're not allowed to carry, so their girlfriend's packing.
It's funny because G. Gordon Liddy used to say, when people ask him if he owned guns still, he says, no, but Mrs. Liddy does.
Yes. So, Ed, do you know anything's going on with the Arizona and the certification? I mean, what's going on there? I understand somebody in Maricopa County's not going to vote to certify because I don't really know. There's not a good reason. Have you heard anything?
No, I mean, it's like that's all happened since, I absconded off here to Puerto Vallarta. But that doesn't surprise me. I mean, it's like the people that are on the board, that two Republicans are Trump loyalists. So, once they've seen the other states, trying to do this, that doesn't surprise me. The one thing that has come out is that the Republicans in the legislature have already said that, no, we're not going down that road.
Which was a worry. My connections in the Senate said that was a serious worry, and that they were preparing for it.
As of today, all the counties in Arizona have certified. So at the county level, everything is good to go. I cannot imagine Katie Hobbs saying she's not going to canvass this thing and certify it. It's supposed to happen certainly by next week, maybe as early as this week. I don't think she wants that on her desk. I think she wants to show that she's doing her due diligence. But, yeah, I think it's going to happen quickly. And the whole thing's in the bag. Once that's done, it's done.
And that's really the last one we're waiting on.
Right.
That's
the
last.
Wisconsin, but it won't matter because there still are enough electoral votes. So it just won't matter.
Yeah, these three states, any one of them that comes in, we have a comfortable margin over 270. And Joe Biden is the next president.
With 306 electoral votes.
All this, fascist and authoritarian stuff, there's a new sheriff in Washington, D.C., and he's actually a sheriff of the people.
And he's a professional sheriff.
Right. And on that note, I think we're done for today, Street Fight Politics. We hope you'll come back next week and join Ed and Harry and myself, Jimmy. And we hope to bring you the news. It keeps changing the day before. We plan our show 2 days before, and it keeps changing the day before. But we'll bring you whatever news is turned up then, and we'll tell you what we think of it. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's the thing we're really trying to grow right now. And we hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.
Everybody be safe and have a great Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.